When I tell you guys, last night was just absolutely mind-boggling and insane in terms of Flyers news and Flyers action, not in terms of the physical game the Flyers played last night, because that game was an absolute bore, getting shut out by the New York Islanders. They always find a way to play the New York Islanders. Both those teams, they play insanely boring hockey when both of those teams match up. That wasn't the most important thing of last night. The most important thing was what was Danny Briere and Keith Jones were doing in terms of making trades. And we find out that the Flyers trade away Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee to Calgary. And it's a whole weird process because we were trying to figure out what the whole trade was, what was coming in return to Philadelphia, what was the entire process, because both Philly and Calgary played last night, so obviously you had to wait for the trade to be confirmed for both teams. So it was an insane night, and Flyers fans have been frustrated for a little bit of time here with, the lack of movement from the front office in terms of what the plan is, what the goal is for the future, and how this rebuild is going to be set in motion. Now we think there's a plan to it, there's a path to it, and now we can probably finally see something open up for Danny Briere and Keith Jones, and we will get into all of that in the next few here on this pod. So, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Sports. First time talking Flyers in a little bit. Eagles have been taking over the priorities, so we always talk all Phillies sports, so if the Flyers have a chance to be brought up, we will talk Flyers. So if you're new to the channel, I definitely recommend you hitting that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. You can also drop a like. You can also leave a comment in the comment section down below. Love interacting with you guys down there. You can also use the code TTP Sports, $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. Use it for anything possible that you can think of, concerts and sporting events. You can also leave a follow at TTP Sports on TikTok and Instagram for shorts, reels, and all of that good stuff. The Anytime Hotline is also for your use for any future pods and all that stuff to get your reactions and opinions down there. So, like I said, last night, the game was a bore. The game was frustrating. Matvei Michkov only played 8+ minutes, and that is a whole other issue that I have with John Tortorella. I'll probably get into that in a little bit, but the most important thing here is talking about the other stuff that went down last night, and that's the trades. So, if we get into the full details here of what this trade transpired to be, so the Flyers sent both Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost to the Calgary Flames for Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Peltier, and a second-round pick in 2025, so that adds to the whole arsenal of first- and second-round picks that the Flyers have in this year's draft. And then what makes it funny, it's a 7th-round pick in 2028. So that just kind of, makes me think of when you play EA Sports NHL and you're trying to make a trade go through in franchise mode. You just throw in a random pick years down the line. That's exactly what that feels right here. So, of course, a lot of people are going to look at the trade face value and just look at it for what it means for this season and say, oh my God, what the hell are the Flyers doing? They definitely just got weaker. This is definitely a win-win for the trades. I'm not looking at it like that, and I don't think most Flyers fans should look at it just from face value from a this year standpoint, because in the whole grand scheme of things, of what this franchise is trying to do, what they're trying to build into, this year, in the grand scheme, like I said, does not mean a lot. You're just trying to look for progression in your young players and see how that, further progresses your rebuild and what players are going to be more value to you or valuable to you as you move forward in this process. So the season doesn't matter. The trade and all that stuff, you want to see how Danny Briere, because they always bring up at the same time, how can we clear cap space? We got a lot of dead cap on the books. We got a lot of contracts that we're waiting to expire, so we can have that freedom and flexibility with the salary cap to do things that we want to do. And if you're looking at this trade from that perspective, it definitely opens up a lot more. of what the Flyers might try to do for the future, and that's basically what it means. You can't just look at this trade face value for this year, because this year does not matter. The Flyers, they're not trying to compete for a Stanley Cup. Honestly, I still feel like they should be trying to bottom out and get a high draft pick as possible. Maybe this trade helps in that factor because it lowers the floor, because I don't know what Kuzmenko and Peltier are going to offer for this Flyers team. And also, trading away Morgan Frost, you trade away another center, which even further decreases your center depth that was barely existent this season. Because basically at this point, with Ryan Poehling injured, your centers are Sean Couturier and Scott Laughton. That is it. That is it. And just some nobodies that you probably call up from the AHL. That's all your center depth. It's terrible. It's completely barren. So you completely lowered your floor. So maybe now you'll lose more games and you can bottom out to where you could possibly land into the top 5. And maybe hopefully at that point when the lottery happens, you get some lottery luck and maybe you can get a top 2 pick. Because I still think that's something that this Flyers team is lacking, is getting that lottery luck. And yes, they did benefit from Matvei Michkov falling to them. That is a definite 100% true. I still think they need more in terms of top-end talent that you find in the draft. If you can get 1 or 2 more top 5 picks into this prospect system, that bodes well for your future, along with the other things that you're probably planning to do down the road. So if you're looking at this just from, like I said, from the face value for this season, you shouldn't be looking at it this way. You should be looking at it at the long-term view. How this team is going to build around this and how they're going to make their moves, and does this trade set up future trades? Because if you're looking at Joel Farabee's contract, he's got 3 more years left at around the $5+ million cap hit, I believe. Morgan Frost, he's making between 2.3 to 3 mil on the cap. He's going to be an RFA after this season. You don't have to worry about extending him. You don't have to worry about Joel Farabee's 3 more years at $5+ million on the cap. That's gone. Because Kuzmenko, he's a UFA after this year. And I believe he's making around 5 to 5.5 mil on the cap. If you choose to let him walk, boom, that cap's gone. And for Peltier, he's on a 1-year league minimum deal. He was a first-round draft pick in 2019. He's making league minimum. He's not on his rookie contract. Really hasn't impressed Calgary that much. This is more of a change of scenery type of thing. Maybe, he comes to Philadelphia. Maybe he finds something in his game that he couldn't unlock in Calgary. That's basically the risk you're taking with this type of trade here with Peltier. So if you're most likely going to re-sign him, he's going to be an RFA. You're signing him to a league minimum deal. He's not going to be making that much. And for Kuzmenko, yeah, his first season in the league when he played with the Vancouver Canucks, he scored 40-plus goals playing alongside Elias Pettersson. But then he really hasn't been able to reach that feat since. And that, for the past couple of years. He signed a 2-year contract around, I believe, $5.5 million per season. And last year he got traded to, or it was last year or 2 years ago, that he got traded to the Calgary Flames. And now Calgary trades him to Philadelphia because he really wasn't able to, I guess, find that click that he had in his first season in Vancouver. And what's interesting about this thing, too, is that Kuzmenko had a no-trade clause, and the Flyers were on that no-trade clause. And I believe Elliot Friedman or Chris Johnston of Sportsnet was talking about this, the way the process went down. And Danny Briere and Keith Jones talked and discussed with Kuzmenko earlier in the afternoon, before the trade and all that stuff was going down, convincing him basically to waive his no-trade clause to come to Philadelphia. And I think there's definitely some factors of why Kuzmenko would definitely waive it to come here. It's also known that Kuzmenko played over in the KHL with Matvei Michkov. So there's a familiarity process there. And maybe it gives Matvei Michkov more comfortability giving somebody that he knows and also someone else that speaks his language and maybe can help with translations and everything like that with John Tortorella. Because really the only thing that you have in terms of that is maybe Ivan Fedotov, Yegor Zamula, and the translator. Now you add a little bit more of that to the process, and maybe Kuzmenko finds something in Philadelphia that makes him salvageable. Obviously, if you choose to re-sign him, he's most likely not going to be making a $5.5 million cap hit. I would say that maybe cuts in half, maybe a little bit lower in terms of his cap hit. So if you do choose to re-sign him and all of that stuff. So there's definitely a lot of things that they're trying to set the grounds for that could be very interesting as you progress in this rebuild. Obviously, the cap stuff, it's huge. Getting Joel Farabee off the cap, not worrying about having to re-sign Morgan Frost to most likely at least a $4 or $5 million cap hit for a few years, that's huge. That is insanely huge. And yeah, if you don't choose to re-sign Kuzmenko, that's $5.5 million instantly off your cap, and you don't have to worry about the other cap hits as well. So you're clearing cap there. And also, you got to look at some of the other dead money that could be coming off of the Flyers this year. I believe Cal Peterson's contract is coming off of the salary cap this year. He could become a UFA. I believe Tony DeAngelo's buyout, that expires after this year. And the same thing with Ryan Johansson. Yeah, I think people forget that Ryan Johansson is a member of the Flyers organization. He doesn't want to go down the Lehigh Valley, and there's all these stupid things that are going around with his contract, trying to terminate the contract, blah, 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 blah. I think his contract expires regardless after this season. So that comes off the books. And yeah, the Flyers do have a couple of RFAs that they have to look into for this offseason. Noah Cates obviously is going to be an RFA. Tyson Forster is going to be an RFA. I believe Cam York is going to be an RFA. Who else? Peltier, even though he's not going to be making that much in his, next RFA contract. So we'll definitely see how that progresses. Noah Cates, he might make a little more. He might make around maybe 3. He might make a Scott Lawton type of salary. That's what I would assume at that rate. I'm not sure about Tyson Forster. Cam York, I'm not sure what he would want at this point. So there's definitely a lot of ways that they can go in terms of the salary cap, in terms of, if you're looking at the buyout salaries, yes, Tony DeAngelo's buyout cap hit, that expires after this year. They have one more year of Cam Atkinson's buyout, and they have one more year of Kevin Hayes' buyout. So those 2 buyouts will expire after next season. So you're definitely going to be getting some salary cap relief, which is a very huge thing there. And what's funny, too, is the NHL announced, I believe earlier, 30, 40 minutes ago, that they're expecting the cap to go up over the course of the next 3 years, and definitely dramatically, too. We haven't seen the cap raise this dramatically in a while, and this is what they're projecting. So right now, I believe the cap, if I think about everything right here, what's the cap space? What's the current cap right here? So the Flyers, they got $3.5 million in cap space. I think the cap it's maybe like around 90, 91, $92 million of cap in totality for the NHL, I believe. So in terms of what the NHL is expecting for the cap to go up to, so for next season, they're expecting the cap to go up to $95.5 million. So that'll definitely help in some process, adding more cap to your space for the offseason. But then this is also where it gets very interesting. The 26-27 season, they're expecting the cap to raise to $104 million. That's huge, especially with a lot more salary coming off of your books. And then for the 27-28 season, they're expecting the cap to raise to $113.5 million. That is a huge, huge possibility that could happen. And now it says, on the NHLPA's thing, or the NHLPR's Twitter, that the projected team payroll ranges for the 26-27 and 27-28 seasons will be subject to a potential minor adjustment up or down. The parties still intend to meet to discuss other elements of a CBA that might need modification and or improvement beyond the 25-26 season. But the NHL, they're expecting the cap to go up by $7.5 million next year. They're expecting to go up by 8.5 in 2026 and 9.5 in 27-28. So that is some very huge things in terms of the cap going up, you adding more salary to your cap, well, not adding more salary, getting more cap relief in terms of on top of all the other salary that could possibly come off of your books. This is huge. This is very huge for this team. And like I said, with this Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost moves, it just sets up other things that can happen, because you also get a second-round pick on top of all the other picks that you have in this year's draft. You got 3 first-round picks, and you got 4 second-round picks now. That's 7 picks in the first 2 rounds. And personally, I do not expect the Philadelphia Flyers, Danny Briere and Keith Jones, to make all of those picks. They are 100% trading a few of those, whether it's a couple of the first rounders, whether it's a couple of the second rounders. they're definitely looking at something. Or maybe they can go into the offseason and maybe offer sheet somebody, because I think offer sheets are even back on the table now with, some of the things that were going on around last season. With the St. Louis Blues offer sheeting a couple of players from the Edmonton Oilers. I think offer sheets are definitely back on the table, and I don't think that's, away from the course of Danny Briere and Keith Jones. I think they can do either or, whether that's making a big blockbuster trade, whether that's going out and making even, some, more savvy moves, or even offer sheeting a young player on the team that, maybe they just can't re-sign. They don't have the salary cap in order to retain those players. So there's a lot of interesting pieces that could be set in motion. And obviously some things that come up as the big names. Elias Pettersson is definitely a name that's going to be coming up in rumors now because of all the crap that's going on with him, JT Miller, and the Vancouver Canucks. Can the Flyers, are they loading up something to possibly go and get an Elias Pettersson? I have no idea. There is the connection now with Kuzmenko and, the whole thing of convincing him to come to Philadelphia. Is there something tied to that? I have no idea. A lot of people are worried about Elias Pettersson. The locker room implications, the whole conflict with him and JT Miller and Rick Tocchet. He's making, I believe, like around 12.5 mil on the cap. Now with the cap going up, I don't think that's going to be an issue at this rate. And Elias Pettersson, he definitely fits the mold of what this Flyers team is trying to do. Because also don't forget, for Flyers fans that are season ticket holders, they raised the prices of season tickets. And I believe this was Anthony Sanfilippo or Elliot Friedman that brought this up. I think that they said, like, in the suing process of raising season ticket prices, they have an 18-month plan here to get back into contention. So that means in the next 18 months, I'm assuming it's starting from, the moment they raise the prices, and this plan is set in place. So they want to get in contention, so 18 months, that's probably like, another 2 seasons, so it's not next year. It might be maybe the 26-27 season where the Flyers are maybe trying to expect to get back into contention for a playoff spot, and then further down the line, getting more competitive to be a perennial Stanley Cup contender. So that's basically from this 18-month plan that they're trying to set. There's something in motion here. They're setting up something. And that's what trading Morgan Frost, that's what trading Joel Farabee, that's what's getting a second-round pick in return to add along to the first and second-round picks that you have in this year's draft. There's something more that's in the works. They're brewing something. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe that sets up more down the line. There's rumors with the LA Kings that, their young defenseman Brandt Clarke not fitting in their system. They might be looking to trade him. He's a young up-and-coming defenseman, too good for the AHL. For some reason, the NHL team, the Los Angeles Kings, have no idea how to implement him into their roster. That would be a defenseman I would love to acquire, a young defenseman, a young offensive defenseman that could possibly be a top-pairing guy, and some guy that can quarterback the power play. My God, because the Flyers' power play is so terrible. But that's, another story for another day. Could a Brandt Clarke be in their mix? There's still a bunch of rumors circling around Rasmus Ristolainen. Could the Flyers be looking to trade Risto? Because Brandt Clarke definitely would be an interesting pickup for a Flyers team, especially if you're trading a Ristolainen, because the LA Kings are trying to compete. They're trying to, get past the first round. They're trying to, move on, progress in their competitiveness. And maybe they don't think Brandt Clarke is ready for this yet. They want to maybe try to acquire another defenseman. I have no idea. And, Jim Rutherford from the Vancouver Canucks came out the other day talking about everything that was going down between, the problems with Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. And Rutherford is not expecting, maybe if they are trading Pettersson, because that could happen, because his no trade clause doesn't kick in until after this season, after this year's draft and free agency starts. So next season is when the no trade clause kicks in. So maybe you could see an Elias Pettersson trade at some point before the draft, by the draft or something like that. Maybe that's an offseason type of trade. I have no idea. But he's also expecting maybe to not get that big of a return. So we have no idea. Could this be like a Jack Eichel 2.0 situation where the return for the team that is trading away a top flight center, they just don't get the value in return because of everything that's going down? I have no idea. I think the Flyers should be 100% involved in that, because Getting an Elias Pettersson, that's your first line center. That could be a guy that's paired with Matvei Michkov for a very long period of time. That's very helpful. And I don't know what the Kuzmenko involvement is in all this process because, yes, Kuzmenko in his first season with the Vancouver Canucks played alongside Elias Pettersson, and that's where he scored his 40-plus goals. So, yes, there is a connection right there. So maybe that can entice some things. I have no idea. I'm just trying to put pieces. Like, the puzzle pieces are in place. We're just trying to figure out how to connect all the dots. And right now, they're setting up something for future moves. And that's what this trade is. Because a lot of Flyers fans, they've been getting very frustrated over the past few weeks, past few months, because we were just afraid of this team just stagnating and waiting too long to figure out what the plan was, what the process was in this rebuild. What were they going to do? Why is it taking so long to evaluate players? Why aren't we trying to move on from things? Why aren't we trying to make trades that could possibly set up for future things? Maybe try to make a savvy trade to get some cap off your books, to relieve you of that salary cap going into offseason and future offseasons. Well, you did that with this Farabee and Morgan Frost trade, so that's step one. And there's definitely more things that can come off the books here. And like I said, this trade definitely sets up a lot of things because with the Joel Farabee Morgan Frost thing, you don't have to worry about their contracts anymore. You don't have to worry about Joel Farabee's contract. You don't have to worry about extending Morgan Frost. That is huge. You can choose to re-sign Kuzmenko if you want. Most likely his cap hit won't be as big as it is now. Or you can just choose to let him walk, and that's salary cap off your books. Peltier, he's making a league minimum. He's an RFA. He's most likely not going to get that gigantic of an extension in salary. So I would expect maybe around the 1 to 2 million range, or he gets more league minimum. I have no idea what the case is going to be there. And you got a second round pick to add to the arsenal of all the first and second round picks that you have this year. You have 7 total in the first 2 rounds of the 2025 draft. You're not making all of those picks. I guarantee that. Danny Briere is going to be savvy. I would hope so. Same thing with Keith Jones. They're going to utilize some of these picks, maybe make a big trade, maybe make multiple trades, because that's what I would expect. The Edmonton pick could be in factor, the Colorado pick could be a factor, and multiple of those second round picks. Flyers, I would most likely expect them to keep their own first round pick, especially if they do bottom out this year, because if you're looking at the standings right now, there's a huge chance that they could bottom out. We know with this trade that they made. Because the center depth is terrible. It just is. And the schedule doesn't get it easier from here. So, they might be losing more games. And some of the teams that are behind them, they got games in hand. So there's not that big of a separation from, the 5th worst team to the 10th worst team. So right now the Flyers are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th worst team. The 5th worst team is the Anaheim Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks have 48 points on the year. The Flyers have 52. Anaheim Ducks, they played 51 games. The Flyers, they played 53. So Anaheim has a couple of games in hand. Now, as you progress throughout the schedule, the Flyers are most likely going to lose a few more games. So maybe could the Flyers end up with a top 7 pick? Maybe that gives them lottery luck. I have no idea. We're just going to have to wait and see how this plays out. But you definitely put yourself into a position where you lowered your floor because you got rid of more center depth. And we don't know how these players are going to, come along, Kuzmenko and Peltier, that is, with the Flyers. We don't know if they're going to improve the team. We don't know if it's just going to be the same stagnation or the team's going to get worse. Personally, I think the team's going to get worse. Just because of, like you said, you lowered your floor, you got rid of another center, your center depth is terrible as it is. So we can see them bottom out and possibly get a higher draft pick. That would be really huge for this team because I would think they would need another high draft pick in their prospect system. And now we'll see how everything progresses. Because this is what Flyers fans wanted to see. We wanted to see them take risks. We wanted to see them have a plan set in motion. We wanted to see them try to focus on things that can set them up for the future. That's basically what we're worried about here. That's what we wanted to see Danny Briere and Keith Jones do. Because, Danny Briere's recent press conference, mid-season press conference, it was kind of same old. Rubbed everybody the wrong way. But now that he's making trades, even though he said during that press conference that he wasn't looking to trade certain guys, now we probably make sure that's probably all hearsay. It was probably just GM speak. Now we got to see on how everything happens. Who knows? Who knows? But there could be a lot of exciting stuff for this team building up for the rest of the season leading up to the draft. There could be a lot of moves. And Danny Briere and Keith Jones, I don't think they're done. There could be a lot of savviness going around here. And as a person that was being frustrated with this team over the past few weeks because I just wanted to see some things take some action, now I have the idea. Now we have the idea of what this team potentially might be trying to do here. And that's where I can put my hope back in. We'll see how it progresses. We do have a voicemail here, though, on the Anytime hotline. So we'll get to that. It's a call from Sean. Let's see what he has to say about this move by the Flyers.
So for all those that wanted Danny Briere to get off his butt and do something, I guess he heeded your advice. You know, the return on the trade, the obvious key to me is the second-round draft pick. If that wasn't attached to this trade, it really wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. But realistically, Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee to me were the great teasers. I mean, they show you flashes and glimpses that they're going to emerge and take the next step, but they never did. But again, it's obvious to me a couple things. Number one, the Flyers rebuild really begins and takes shape during the 2025 draft. They're going balls to the wall for this, stockpiling picks. There's no doubt in my mind that that's where this really begins. Number two, look, they may have to accelerate the process a little bit. When you come out and tell the people that you're going to raise the ticket prices, I mean, I got to be honest with you, Amadeo, even with the prices now, that product is far from entertaining. It's coma-inducingly boring. The power play sucks. The creativity sucks in the offensive zone. The lack of physicality. So if you're raising the ticket prices because you have a bigger plan in mind, whether it's a big trade or signing free agents, etc., I'm on board with it. But this is just the first step. Let's see what this leads to because there's more steps to come.
Oh, yeah, 100%. This is a trade that leads to many more things happening. I don't think in terms of free agent signings and all that stuff, I think they're saving, free agency and all that stuff to sign their RFAs like Noah Cates, Tyson Forrester, Cam York, and all that stuff. Because it was weird, too, because when they sent out that letter for the season ticket holders talking about the ticket prices increases and stuff like that, Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost were not one of the players mentioned on that list. Neither was guys like Owen Tippett. I think they mentioned Noah Cates, Bobby Brink, Tyson Forrester, Cam York, all that stuff. Matvey Michkov, obviously. That leads to a lot of people speculating because some guys weren't mentioned on that list, and those guys ended up being traded. And also some guys, Owen Tippett's not mentioned. Is Owen Tippett going to be traded now? I have no idea. So this is a trade that sets up a lot of other things that could possibly happen. That's, like Sean said, that's the first step. And just go into Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. Those guys were just never going to figure it out here. You've been on this team for too long. Didn't really break out, anything like that. You just weren't going to figure it out in Philadelphia. It is what it is. And if those guys figure it out in Calgary, good for them. It just wasn't going to happen here in Philadelphia. Those guys weren't a part of the future. It's business. Got to figure it out. And kudos to Danny Briere for making that move to get another draft pick in return, which could possibly clear up salary cap for this offseason and lead a way to a lot more moves possibly happening. So we'll see. It definitely could be a very interesting time for this Flyers team. I guarantee you that. So, without further ado, everybody, I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you like the trade? Are you confused about the trade? Do you not like it because you are Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee fans? I feel bad for you in that standpoint, but I would love to hear your comments regardless. So don't forget to leave your comments and opinions down in the comment section below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. Use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK, and also follow over at TTPSPORTS at TikTok and Instagram for all that good stuff. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll get to more Eagles talk as the week progresses into the Super Bowl week. So, for now, I'll see you guys next time.